Hey guys, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse wood carving, and we're going to be analyzing some of its deeper meaning. So, here in this picture, we have the Four Horsemen, and they're causing a lot of chaos, and there's some deeper things hidden in this picture that I'm going to talk about. So, for one of the first key points of emphasis I'm going to talk about is this bow. So, there's the man with the bow. We'll talk about these things later. I'm just going to highlight them right now. So there's the bow that this man's holding. And a big key of emphasis is this sword. That sword takes up a large part of the picture, and it kind of has a lot of emphasis put onto it. Same with the scale, really any of the things these guys are holding. But also we can see that they're trampling all of these civilians down here. And we also have this angel above. These clouds kind of curve out of the way. So if you notice how it kind of gets a little darker right here, just like the rest of the background, the clouds are kind of forming a little circle around the angel to get some emphasis on him. So I think that's one of the highlighted things that's supposed to pop out a little bit more. Same with the Four Horsemen, because that's what the painting's all about. Or I mean wood carving. And I'm going to talk about how there's a lot of things in this painting, like a lot of paintings, that the artist specifically wants us to notice. And they're highlighted as emphasis points, but there's also ways that they want our eyes to move around the picture. So for me, when I look at this picture, the first thing I see is this big sword. I mean, I see the horseman, but the sword really stands out a little bit more, just kind of above them, and it's a big, somewhat centralized object. And then that you can kind of follow it down this hill, which will point to this guy. And you could have also followed it here because this guy's right next to it and he's pointing at it a little bit. So it might move a little differently for everyone. But there's also this bow right here that's being stretched out this way, which will point us back to this guy. And if we follow him back to his sword, we can follow him back to this, which is the Horseman of Famine. And this scale kind of heads that way, and there's a dead end there. But under him, we have this horseman. He kind of has this little trident, and it points down here at these people. And that kind of bring you over to these rocks that are being thrown on the people because the horses are trampling them. But that's just how they want your eyes to move around the artwork a little bit. But there's a deeper meaning to all of this. So this guy who's holding the bow, you might notice he also has a crown on. He's the Horseman of Conquering. And I think the reason he has a bow is because bow is more of a strategic weapon, just like conquering is. Conquering is kind of thought of as a noble thing. He's on a white horse, and I think the colors of the horses also are important here. But he has this crown and this bow, which are both kind of symbolic of conquest. And this is the horse of war. So in the picture, or I mean, the swordsman of war, the horse is portrayed white here, but it's supposed to be red, but this is a black and white picture. And this guy's holding a sword. And the reason for that, I'm assuming, is because swords are often thought of as just a symbol of war, because they're just kind of a symbol of hostility and war. And red can represent the blood and the hatred involved in war. Now for this guy, Famine, he looks a little starved over here. His horse is black, and that one's a little harder to decide why the horse is black. But the best thing I could come up with is that Famine is kind of like a black void, emptiness, no food. Maybe it represents that. And he has this balance, which is either supposed to represent the imbalance of food and people, or the weighing of the rations for the very little food that the people receive during a famine. And now we have this dude, the guy who looks like he's almost dead. He's death. He's holding this trident. And I think the reason he has the trident is because tridents are often associated with the underworld. So we see Satan has a trident, so does Hades. Death is also associated with the underworld because that's what the underworld is. And then we have all these people under here. And I think they just represent the entire world. Because the four horsemen of the apocalypse are the apocalypse on the entire world. They're here to destroy everyone. And we also have this little monster guy down here. And I guess that's supposed to show they're not just destroying humans, they're destroying everyone. Because I'm assuming he's getting run over by this horse. It's a little hard to tell. He's also eating this guy. But that can be open for interpretation. But we also have this pale horse. I forgot to mention the color. The reason it's pale, I'm assuming, is because pale is kind of just thought of as the color of death. Absence of color and absence of life. Things turn pale when they die. That's probably the reasoning for that. And I'm going to talk about how all of this connects to the text that it came from. So in the text that it came from, there's seals that are opened, and each of these horses come out individually to start the apocalypse. Because we have conquest, and then comes war, then famine, and then death. And they're always portrayed in this order. I think death is always portrayed as the last, because that's the last thing that'll ever happen to anyone. But the other order, it's kind of unknown. And so I've talked about how the whole point of this painting is that it represents the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, bringing chaos upon the world. And there's the hidden meanings in the picture, which I've explained. And now I'm going to explain how this is valuable to me, or how I value it. So I think, whether you read the text or not, this is a pretty good picture. I mean, it looks pretty cool. But also we have, these guys are 4 factors that probably will be related to the end of the world. Maybe. But it's illustrated pretty well. The points of emphasis work out. The only thing in here that really doesn't make sense to me is this, or this little dude on the bottom. It's like this horse's leg is kind of stuck in him, or it's like behind him. That's really the only thing that throws me off about this painting. I think the rest of it is pretty clear what they're trying to illustrate here. Like, these guys are being trampled by rocks. But then if you did read the text and you know all of the story behind it, that makes the picture even better, because you understand, like, the stuff. I thought the balance was kind of cool, because that's really confusing to why this guy's holding a balance, but if you read the book, it'll make a little more sense. But those are my thoughts on this painting, and yeah.